You should have seen their faces when Jaewook stood up at that podium. All those designer-clad socialites who had spent the entire evening mocking my cheap little ring suddenly went silent. When he announced the price, $50,000, I watched their smug expressions crumble like paper in rain. But that wasn't even the best part. What happened next? Well, let me tell you how this perfect evening of revenge unfolded. My name is Jiun, and I've learned that in Seoul's elite circles, they judge you by everything: your dress, your shoes, your jewelry, even the way you hold your champagne glass. What they don't expect is someone like me fighting back with more class than they could ever buy. I adjusted my simple black dress and stepped into the glittering ballroom at Donghua Group's charity gala. The Donghua Group's charity gala was the event of the season. Every chaebol heir, socialite, and business elite in Seoul was here tonight. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across marble floors, and waiters in white gloves served champagne that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Jiun. My colleague Minsu waved me over to a group near the auction display. Come meet some people. I walked over, my heels clicking against the marble. The group consisted of 3 women, all draped in designer gowns and enough diamonds to blind someone. This is Jiun from our legal department, Minsu said. Jiun, meet Yuna, CEO Park's daughter, so young, from the Lee chaebol family, and Miran, she's engaged to the Hyundai heir. Yuna looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. Legal department? How practical. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I love your dress. It's so affordable looking. Thank you, I replied smoothly. I prefer understated elegance. So Young giggled. Understated is certainly one way to put it. Her gaze landed on my hand. Oh my goodness, what a cute little ring. Is that from a street vendor? It looks so. I glanced down at the simple silver band on my finger. It looked modest compared to their flashy diamonds, with just a small, clear stone that caught the light quietly. It has sentimental value, I said calmly. Miran leaned in closer. Sentimental? How sweet. My engagement ring cost more than most people's cars, but I suppose we all have different standards. Different priorities, certainly, I agreed, taking a sip of my champagne. His laugh was sharp. Well, at least you're honest about shopping at budget stores. There's something refreshing about someone who doesn't pretend to belong in circles like this. Actually, I think authenticity is more valuable than any price tag, I replied. Don't you think real worth comes from substance rather than appearance? The 3 women exchanged glances. So Young's smile turned predatory. How philosophical. But let's be honest, in our world, appearance matters. People judge quality by price. That ring probably cost what? $50? If that, Miran added with a smirk. I remained calm, swirling my champagne. You seem very interested in my jewelry. Should I be flattered by the attention? Yuna stepped closer. We're just curious about how certain people afford to attend events like this. Surely the legal department doesn't pay that well. Well enough, I said quietly. Though I imagine you wouldn't understand the concept of earning your own way. The tension crackled between us like electricity. Other guests began to notice our conversation, some turning to listen with barely concealed interest. Earning our way? So Young's voice rose slightly. How delightfully middle class. I suppose someone has to work for a living. I set down my champagne glass with deliberate precision. Someone does indeed. Though I've always found that those who work hardest often have the most genuine success. Miran laughed loudly. Darling, success is inheriting billions, marrying well, and wearing jewelry that costs more than a house. Success isn't shopping at discount stores and pretending a fake ring is sentimental. The crowd around us had grown. I could feel eyes watching, waiting to see how this would unfold. These women expected me to crumble, to apologize, to slink away embarrassed. Instead, I smiled. 30 minutes later, the confrontation had drawn more attention than I'd expected. Word travels fast in Seoul's elite circles, and soon half the ballroom seemed aware that the chaebol daughters were having fun with someone from the working class. She was clearly enjoying herself. She'd gathered a small audience of equally privileged friends, and they circled me like designer-clad vultures. Show everyone the ring, Jiun said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. We were just discussing how charming it is when people wear, what would you call it, costume jewelry to events like this. Costume jewelry, echoed a man I recognized as another CEO's son. How quaint. So Young grabbed my hand before I could pull away. Look at this, everyone. Isn't it adorable? It's like something from a children's toy box. The stone looks like plastic. Laughter rippled through the crowd. These people fed off social hierarchies like sharks fed off blood. Please let go of my hand, I said calmly. Oh, don't be embarrassed. Miran chimed in. There's nothing wrong with budget shopping. We all have to start somewhere, right? Not all of us, but people like you. The crowd was growing larger. I spotted several board members, other executives, even some government officials watching the spectacle with amusement. I think what's fascinating, said another woman who joined us, is the confidence. To wear fake jewelry to a charity gala where the auction items start at $10,000? That takes audacity. Or desperation, I added. Maybe she thought no one would notice among all the real jewelry here. I looked around at the circle of faces, some amused, some pitying, some openly mocking. They were all waiting for me to break, to apologize, to confirm their superiority. You know what I find interesting? I said, my voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. The assumption that value is always visible. Meaning what, exactly? So Young challenged. Meaning that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones that don't scream for attention. Sometimes restraint shows more class than ostentation. Yuna's laugh was brittle. Restraint? Is that what we're calling poverty now? How creative. The crowd laughed again. I felt the familiar sensation of being surrounded by predators, but I'd been here before. Growing up middle class in Seoul, attending university on scholarships while surrounded by chaebol children, working my way through law school, I'd learned to navigate these waters. I notice you keep talking about poverty, I observed. Are you perhaps worried about your own financial security? The laughter died. Yuna's face flushed. Excuse me? It's just that people who are truly secure in their wealth don't usually need to attack others to prove their status. Confidence speaks for itself. Miran stepped forward aggressively. How dare you, how dare I what? Point out that you've spent the last hour obsessing over a stranger's jewelry? That you've gathered a crowd to mock someone you don't even know? What does that say about your character? The energy in the room shifted. Some people began to look uncomfortable. Others seemed intrigued by the unexpected pushback. So Young tried to regain control. Character? You're lecturing us about character while wearing fake jewelry to deceive people about your status. I've never claimed my jewelry was expensive, I replied. You made that assumption. The only deception here is the idea that your behavior tonight shows any kind of class or breeding. The crowd murmured. This wasn't going the way I had planned. You know. What? Yuna's voice was getting shrill. Let's settle this. What did that pathetic ring actually cost? $50? $20? $10? The ballroom had gone quiet. Even the string quartet seemed to be playing more softly. Everyone was watching, waiting. I looked directly at Yuna. Why don't you ask Chairman Jae-wook? He's right behind you. The color drained from Yuna's face as she turned slowly. Chairman Lee Jae-wook, CEO of Donghua Group and one of the most powerful men in South Korea, stood 3 feet away. His expression was unreadable, but there was something dangerous in his eyes. Chairman Lee stammered, her voice suddenly small. We were just having a conversation about. I heard exactly what you were having a conversation about, Jae-wook said quietly. His voice carried easily through the silent ballroom. You were mocking my guest's jewelry. The silence stretched like a taut wire. So Young and Miran looked like they wanted to disappear into the marble floor. Your guest? Miran whispered. Jae-wook stepped forward, and the crowd instinctively parted. He was in his early 40s, tall and commanding, with the kind of presence that made boardrooms fall silent. Tonight, that presence felt particularly lethal. Ms. Jiun, he said, turning to me. May I see your ring? I held out my hand. He took it gently, lifting it so the light caught the stone. The simple band suddenly seemed to shimmer differently under the chandeliers. Ladies and gentlemen, Jae-wook's voice carried to every corner of the ballroom. You've been discussing this ring with such enthusiasm. Perhaps you'd like to know more about it. The crowd pressed closer. Yuna looked like she was going to be sick. This is a 5-carat, internally flawless white diamond, Jae-wook announced clearly. Set in platinum with a custom setting designed by Cartier's master craftsman in Paris. The apparent simplicity of the design was specifically requested to showcase the stone's natural brilliance without distraction. The silence was deafening. The ring cost $50,000, he continued. And I should know, because I purchased it myself. Yuna made a small, strangled sound. So Young's champagne glass slipped from nerveless fingers, shattering on the marble floor. You see, Jae-wook said, still holding my hand up for everyone to see, Ms. Jiun has something that money can't buy, the confidence to wear exceptional quality without feeling the need to announce its value to strangers. Unlike some people, she doesn't require external validation. He released my hand and turned to face the crowd fully. I gave her this ring because she is the most intelligent, capable, and genuine person I've ever met. She graduated summa cum laude from Seoul National University, speaks 4 languages fluently, and has never once in her life judged anyone based on their appearance or bank account. The crowd was mesmerized. Several people had their phones out. In fact, Jae-wook continued, his voice growing harder, she tried to refuse the ring because she said it was too expensive. She only accepted it when I explained that its value lay not in its price, but in what it represented, respect for someone who earned everything through merit rather than inheritance. I was shaking. Chairman Lee, we didn't know, you didn't know because you didn't ask, he cut her off. You saw someone who didn't fit your narrow definition of wealth and decided to humiliate her publicly. You assumed that quiet confidence meant inferiority. You were wrong. He looked around the ballroom slowly, making eye contact with various members of the crowd. I want everyone here to remember this moment, he said. Remember that true class isn't about what you own, it's about how you treat people. Ms. Ji-eun showed more grace under attack than any of you showed while watching someone being bullied. The silence was crushing. I could hear my own heartbeat. And now, Jae-wook said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, let's discuss consequences. 10 minutes later, the aftermath was swift and devastating. Jae-wook had walked to the microphone on the small stage where the evening's announcements were made. The entire ballroom watched in fascination and horror as Seoul's most powerful CEO prepared to deliver what everyone knew would be a career-ending speech. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice boomed through the sound system. Tonight's charity auction was meant to raise funds for educational scholarships for underprivileged students. How fitting that we've just witnessed a perfect example of why such programs are necessary. The crowd was dead silent. Yuna, So-young, and Miran stood frozen near the back, probably hoping to slip away unnoticed. Education, Jae-wook continued, teaches us more than facts and figures. It teaches us empathy, critical thinking, and the ability to recognize worth beyond surface appearances. Clearly, some expensive private educations have failed in this regard. Several people in the crowd winced. I've just watched 3 women, whose families I've done business with for years, attempt to publicly humiliate someone they perceived as beneath them. They mocked her appearance, her jewelry, and her social status, gathering a crowd to witness what they thought would be an amusing display of superiority. You could have heard a pin drop. What they didn't realize is that the woman they chose to attack, Ji-eun Park, is not only my personal guest but also the most qualified legal mind I've ever encountered. She's been quietly handling some of our most complex international negotiations for the past year, saving our company millions while those 3 women were shopping and gossiping. I felt my cheeks warm. The crowd's attention turned to me briefly before focusing back on Jae-wook. More importantly, he said, his voice growing colder, they demonstrated a fundamental lack of character that I cannot overlook in business relationships. Yuna's father, CEO Park, looked like he was having a heart attack. Effective immediately, Donghua Group will be re-evaluating all our partnerships with companies that employ or are owned by individuals who believe bullying is acceptable entertainment. We will also be reconsidering our attendance at any social events where such behavior is tolerated. The implications hit the room like a tsunami. Jae-wook's company was one of the largest in South Korea. His displeasure could end careers, destroy deals, and exile people from Seoul's elite circles permanently. Furthermore, he continued, I'm pleased to announce that Ms. Park will be joining our executive board as Chief Legal Officer, effective next month. Her salary, I can assure you, will be substantially more than what most people spend on jewelry. The crowd erupted in surprised murmurs. I stood there, stunned. This was the first I was hearing of any promotion. Jae-wook stepped down from the stage and walked directly to me. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Ji-eun, he said quietly, though his voice still carried to nearby listeners, I apologize that you had to endure that treatment at an event I hosted. It won't happen again. You don't need to apologize, I replied. You didn't do anything wrong. No, but I allowed it to continue when I should have stepped in immediately. He turned to face the crowd again. I hope everyone here learns something from tonight. Real wealth isn't about what you display, it's about what you do with your opportunities. Real class isn't about breeding, it's about how you treat people when you think no one important is watching. He offered me his arm. Shall we continue with the evening? I believe there are some auction items that deserve our attention more than playground gossip. As we walked away, I caught sight of Yuna crying near the exit while her father spoke angrily into his phone. So-young and Miran had already fled. The crowd continued to buzz with excitement, but now the energy was different. They were talking about justice being served rather than enjoying someone's humiliation. Was that promotion offer real? I asked quietly as we walked. Jae-wook smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him all evening. I've been planning to offer it for months. I was just waiting for the right moment. After tonight, I'd say this is definitely the right moment. And the ring story? Every word was true. Though I admit I bought it hoping you'd accept it eventually. I just didn't expect it to serve as such perfect evidence of your character. I looked down at the simple band that had caused so much trouble. In the ballroom lights, it did look different now, not flashier, but somehow more confident. Its value had always been there, waiting for the right person to recognize it. "Thank you," I said simply. "Thank you," he replied. "For showing me that there are still people in Seoul who judge worth by character instead of connections." As the evening continued, the story spread through Seoul's social media like wildfire. By morning, #CheapRing was trending, and videos of the confrontation had gone viral. His father lost 3 major contracts. So Young's engagement was called off. Miran's family quietly sent her abroad to study. But for me? I got exactly what I'd always worked for: respect earned through merit, recognition for my abilities, and the satisfaction of knowing that, just sometimes, the good guys really do win.